Midnight in the palace of Hastinapura. King Dhritarashtra cannot find rest. He paces the stone corridors, a blind ruler gripped by visible distress. The Kuru dynasty is approaching a flashpoint. A rigged game of dice has stripped the Pandavas of their kingdom. Their queen has been publicly humiliated, and an uncompromising ultimatum has just arrived. Global war is now a matter of hours away. Dhritarashtra's sleeplessness is a crisis of conscience. He summons his chief minister, Vidura, into the inner chambers for an urgent, late-night intervention. The king's private psychological unraveling is the first real casualty of the conflict. Before the armies even meet, the moral vacuum at the center of the administration has already begun to pull the empire apart. Vidura occupies a unique position in this court. As the son of a palace maidservant, he is a Shudra, barred from ever claiming the throne. He is the only courtier entirely free from the royal ambitions that cloud the judgment of his siblings. Within the epic's metaphysical structure, Vidura is the human incarnation of Yama, the deity of cosmic justice. He exists as an objective, clinical observer of the law. He diagnoses the king's condition with brutal precision. Sleeplessness, he notes, is a somatic symptom that afflicts only the weak, the lustful, or a thief in the middle of a crime. Vidura identifies the specific cause of the king's anxiety, his complicity in the theft of his nephew's inheritance. This is a dharma, a fundamental violation of righteousness that makes rest impossible. The purpose of this counsel is to strip away the king's rationalizations. Real ethical guidance offers no comfort. It exposes the root corruption of the leadership. To define a path forward, Vidura establishes a strict epistemological boundary between two types of leaders, the wise pandita and the destructive fool. The pandita's execution of duty remains constant, undisturbed by external dualities or swings of prosperity. The fool lacks this self-awareness. Characterized by pride and deceit, their internal instability endangers the systems they govern. These definitions describe the king's eldest son. Duryodhana embodies every pathological trait of the fool, leading the Kuru lineage toward its own destruction. Royal birth is meaningless if a leader lacks the emotional regulation required to govern. Without self-mastery, the administration of justice becomes impossible. Vidura frames political sovereignty as a challenge of self-regulation, using the metaphor of a chariot to explain the mechanics of rule. In this system, the body is the chariot, the intellect the driver, and the senses are wild horses. Success depends on maintaining tension. A king who cannot govern his impulses will inevitably crash the entire state. This internal weakness creates an external vacuum, quickly filled by sycophants. These flatterers provide a shield of confirmation bias, protecting the king from the beneficial truths he needs to survive. This leads to the most severe demand of the Vidura Nīti. It is an ethical mathematics. Sacrifice one person for a family for a village for a country. To preserve the empire, Dhritarashtra must abandon his corrupt son. Effective governance is the moral courage to ruthlessly prioritize the survival of the institution over personal, familial, or dynastic loyalty. Dhritarashtra acknowledges the truth of Vidura's words, but remains paralyzed. He claims his love for his son is an overriding force, blaming destiny, or daiva, for his inability to act. This rationalization ensures the collapse of the dynasty. Millions will die in the Kurukshetra War, and the Kuru lineage will be incinerated, simply because a leader chose personal attachment over ethical duty. Vidura's final act is one of total resignation. He breaks his bow and leaves Hastinapura, choosing exile and integrity over complicity in a failing system. When leaders blame external forces for their own moral failures, they actively guarantee the destruction of the systems they were sworn to protect. The Vidura Nīti remains a precise manual for identifying and preventing institutional collapse in the present day. Modern corporate governance faces these same risks. Executives prioritizing nepotism and surrounding themselves with yes-men invite the ruin that destroyed the Kuru kings. In public administration, institutional legitimacy collapses when the personal biases of leaders compromise the impartial application of justice. Vidura's entire philosophy is captured in a single phrase, yato dharmastato jaya. Where there is righteous governance, there is ultimate victory. True leadership, across any era, is the lonely, courageous act of choosing objective justice over the comforts of attachment.